what's up guys? It's Luke, and you're watching Luke the Gathering, my little new magic YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. You're one of like 3 people who watch this channel, so congrats, I guess. Anyways, I'm chronicling my magic journey, and I just started. Today was my 3rd booster draft that I've ever done, and I've not done a booster draft sort of recap video or anything like that. This is number 1. Probably should have done it for the other 2, but nothing really happened in the other 2. I didn't do very well. The first booster draft tournament, I got annihilated. Never done a booster draft before, and boy, was that a learning experience for me, let me tell you. So I went 0-3, did not win a single game or any match or anything. The second one was a Modern Horizons 2 booster draft, and that is not a very new player friendly set. However, I did win one of the matches, or one of the games within a match of 3, but I was still 0-3. This time, I actually won a game. Oh my gosh. So I was 1-2 in this Zendikar Rising booster draft. And I'm going to go over the cards that I used in the draft, and you can say they suck or whatever, but when I went to this draft, I actually thought I was going to a Kaldheim draft, because I think that's what they were doing. But then when they brought out the product, it turned out to be Zendikar Rising, and I was like, I have no idea what is in Zendikar Rising in terms of cards. I bought a few packs and I think a couple bundles because they were really cheap on Target.com of Zendikar Rising, but I didn't really ever take a look closely at the cards. I've never drafted it. So I was really going in blind to this experience, and so I just took what I could. I ended up drafting green and blue. I started off with blue, and then I went into green because I saw some really good green cards. Blue and green are not my favorite colors to draft. I was talking to somebody at the tournament, and they were saying like, hey, you know, people like certain styles, and I don't know, blue and green, I just don't think it's my style. But I guess you get the cards you're dealt, right? You get the hand that you're dealt, and so I did the best that I could with what I had, and then I tried to draft not knowing a single card in Zendikar Rising, or what, you know, kind of strategies you would use in the format. So if you have any ideas of, you know, what to do in Zendikar, let me know. I'd be happy to read about it in the comments below from all 3 of you who watch this video. But that being said, let's go ahead and turn the camera around and take a look at some of the cards that I used. I guess I'll just talk about some of the cards and maybe the reasoning why I took the cards. And if you have like differing opinions, which I'm sure you do, let me know what I should have done or what I should have done better. I'll try to talk a little bit about the experiences I had. It's very hard for me to remember some of the specific names of the Zendikar Rising cards that I was playing against, just because obviously with Magic they got all sorts of crazy names, and then never seen those cards before in my life, so that was difficult. But let's go ahead, let's check out the cards I got from the draft. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these cards. I just grabbed the deck that I used. I went with a 40 card deck. I try to keep it to a minimum, and I try to play about 16 lands, and then so the rest of them are going to be the cards I play with. And in my first draft pack, I try to look for, you know, the best cards, and of course I'm going to look for, well, what's the rare or mythic card in the pack, and it was Seagate Restoration. It's a blue card, and so I was like, well, maybe I should go into blue and pick this card up. So it turns out I never used this card on this side, where it's a sorcery. You draw cards equal to the number of cards, or cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. I was like, oh my gosh. And then it says you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Turns out I wasn't drawing a whole lot of cards, and this is a very expensive spell at 3 blue and 4 of anything else, and so I actually never got a chance to use this card. And even if I did, I'd only have this card in my hand with like maybe 1 or 2 other cards, and then so I'd be drawing maybe 2 or 3 cards. I just wasn't worth, I think, the slot in the deck, so maybe I should have gone with something else. but it's Seagate Restoration. I was talking to someone after we played a game, and I think they were right. They said that they would include this in their deck, but the nice thing is, and I totally forgot that it had an opposite side where it could just be sort of a land that gives you blue. And actually, my third game, I used it as a land when I drew it, and so it was fine, but not a card that I thought was a real game winner for me. Here's another mythic. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a lot of blue mythics. This must mean I should play blue. Well, Seagate Stormcaller was a card, and I never used Seagate Stormcaller. I had Seagate Stormcaller in my hand, but as it turns out, I never had enough mana to really use the kicker on the Seagate Stormcaller, and so I never got to use its ability to copy an instant or sorcery spell. And it was only with a converted mana cost of 2 or less, so I would have her in hand, but then I wouldn't have the spell that I needed, or I'd only have creatures, and so this mythic did not do a whole lot for me. I was saying maybe this might be good in Constructed. You can build around this ability. It's still a 2/1, but really, Seagate Stormcaller didn't do a whole lot for me. This guy was awesome. And when I saw this guy, it's a foil, first of all, so really pretty card. But Grakma, it's green, black, and colorless. It's not super expensive to put out, so that's when I decided, you know what, I'm just going to throw green in and maybe put some blacks. Yeah, maybe. And that's what I ended up doing. I put like 2 swamps in. And actually, 2 out of the 3 in the rounds, I actually was able to get Grakma out, which is really neat. Really sweet, actually. Grakma did a lot of work for me. Won me some of the games that I actually did win. And I do like that when it enters the battlefield, you get the 3+1/+1 counters on it. And when it dies, you still get a creature token with the same amount of counters on that. So it's almost like you have 2 of these. When this one dies, another one comes out. Really awesome card in Limited. I think the cost is definitely fair. And I was actually able to play it. Really scary card, except once it got exiled, and I was sad. So, cool card, though. And here's another really great one. Inscription of Abundance. It only costs 2, and then the kicker is only 2 and green. And, wow, this is amazing. It lets you have 2 +1/+1 counters on a target creature, and if you kick it, you can gain life, and you can have a creature fight a different creature. This card came in really handy, and I think this was maybe the all-star card that I actually had for today, because I actually was able to pull this card in the deck quite often. Did a really nice job for me. This was a cool looking card, the Skyclave Squid. Unfortunately, it stayed a defender most of the time. I had cards that helped you draw their cards or grab lands, but I could never get the land I wanted into my hand with Skyclave Squid. And so what ended up happening is I couldn't ever really attack that much with Skyclave Squid, which made it just a defender. And I hate being on my heels. It's not the way I like to play. I don't like to just sit back. And so Skyclave Squid is a card that just kind of makes you want to sit back. And because of that, it just was a bit lackluster for me. Didn't do a whole lot except block. This was probably my scariest guy, the Canopy Bailoth. And this also has landfall, so my deck had some landfall in it where this guy becomes a 6/5 creature. Really scary. Look at his face. He is scary. Comes out for 4, so not excruciatingly expensive. Really nice. This guy helped me defend against some of the opponent's bigger creatures today, which I appreciated a lot. We had Scale the Heights. This was cool too. I didn't get this card that often. I actually have 2 of these in the deck. And this card lets you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, gain 2 life, play an additional land, and draw a card. All for green and 2. So that's pretty sweet. I thought that this was going to do a lot more. Unfortunately, I didn't draw this card very often. The games that I won, I got this card. But Other than that, I didn't really get this card, and I feel like this card makes a huge difference, getting that +1/+1 counter on a creature, gaining a little bit of life, and then drawing a card. What an amazing card. So actually I got that and the foil version. So that was really pretty cool. Nisa's Zendikon, I thought was an okay card for me. This is enchant land, and it turns a land to a 4/4 creature with reach and haste, and it's still a land, and if the land dies, it goes to my hand. A lot of good aspects, but what I found is when I got these guys out, 4/4 was just a little bit smaller than the creatures they had, and so I couldn't do a whole lot, unfortunately, with it. But the cool thing is if it does die, it goes back to my hand, and I can play it and like use the landfall ability with this card, and so that could trigger some really cool effects. Sadly, I was getting overrun by the time I could actually have these out. Let's see. I didn't really use this card very much. Tajuru Snarecaster didn't do a whole lot for me. This actually would have done well, except the creature that it was attached to was exiled, and that was it for that. So I'm not going to talk about that much. Dauntless Survivor. This is a card I can see playing with a whole lot more. It says, when he enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature, and this costs 2. I think this is a nice value. You can get this guy out really quick in the game and start doing a little bit of damage, and that's what he did for me. Might of Marasa, another common. This was really nice too. It gives a +3/+3 till the end of the turn at instant speed. And if you kick it, it's a +5/+5. Now this would have been great to like really damage an opponent. However, I was really using this defensively, and I didn't really have to kick it, so that was good. I was able to kill off some creatures with this little boosting spell. Glacial Grasp. This was really cool. Being able to tap a creature and having the controller mill 2 cards, and the creature doesn't untap, and you get to draw a card. That seems like a whole lot of value to me, along with the other green card that I was talking about. This actually won me a game as well. I was able to tap a creature, they couldn't block, and then I was able to reduce the opponent's life total to 0 on that turn. And so I really like this card, a card that can really sort of get rid of a creature so they can't block or can't do anything. You can go in and win the game. Let's see, the Pack Beast didn't do a whole lot for me. I did use its ability to add 1 mana and of any color. That did come in handy when I needed a green, so I did do that once, and that was cool. This is also a Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard. There are some cards that kind of synergize with using those things, and this did a nice job. So I think this was a good inclusion. Seafloor Stalker. You know what? I didn't see this guy once in the whole game. He never came out. Useless. Nissa Zendikon, we talked about that one already. Expedition Diviner. Actually, I had this guy a lot. I always had this guy in my hand for whatever reason. And not bad. Flyer, 3/2, cost 4, so I feel like a bit expensive. But he did a nice job kind of whittling down the opponent a few times until they got their flyers out. Rabid Bite, really great card. Can just kind of remove a creature from the opponent. I thought this was a great card. I kind of wish I had some more of these. This is a card I didn't know really anything about, so I wasn't looking for it, but I'm glad I got one. Zulaport Duelist has Flash. I might have used him once, but not a whole lot going on there. Jujublight Blade. This guy was awesome. 1 for Death Touch, a 1/1 Death Touch creature. This guy put in some work, scared the opponent. I hate Death Touch. I really hate Death Touch, playing against Death Touch. So having somebody with Death Touch was pretty cool and cheap, and just kind of makes your opponent not want to attack, especially when they have bigger creatures, because they don't want those creatures to die. Dauntless Survivor, talked about him already. Sure-footed Infiltrator. This guy wasn't bad either. He was able to draw me a few cards for attacking, not too often, but I don't know, 3 and 1, that's 4. I mean, these guys are pretty expensive, so I never really had a ton of creatures out just because of the costs. And then an anti-cognition counters a creature planeswalker unless the opponent plays 2. You know, I never got to use this card, but I always like to have some cards like this. Oops, let me focus. Focus. There we go. Have some of these cards out, but I never got a chance to really use it. So that was the deck. It was green, blue, and then with just a splash of black in it. Like I said, I ended up going 1 and 3. I had fun. I think if I go back into Zendikar, another draft, maybe I'll do a little bit better knowing these cards more, and hopefully being a little bit more prepared. They're having a Strixhaven draft on Friday, and so I'm hoping to play in that one when Friday comes up. I love drafts. They're just so much fun. And the live environment's really great. Like I said, Davis Cards and Games, they do a really great job. The place is clean. It's nice. And the people that play there are really friendly, helpful, and respectful. Especially for someone who's like new, like me. It's just a nice place to get into. Anyways, these were sort of my 4 cards that I really liked. Picking them out, even though they didn't really do, some of them didn't do anything for me during the draft. It was fun to play with them and add these to the collection. Let me know what you thought of the cards in my deck. Maybe what could I have done better, or some of the strategies you might have seen, or maybe some of the cards I should have tried to get from this set. Because, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about Zendikar Rising. I do have a few bundles that I got, but I thought we were actually going to play a Kaldheim draft, so I was kind of looking up strategies for that. Hopefully that'll help me for the next time I do one of those, and of course the next time will be the first time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.